Hello YouTube. Today on The Naughty Librarian we are recapping You Only Live Twice by Ian Fleming. I'll be honest here, I'm not looking forward to reviewing this. You Only Live Twice is just a dumpster fire, frankly. It's not very good. And not just because it's horrendously problematic, it's just also poorly written. And fun fact, Ian Fleming himself was like, guys, the well is dry. Even he was like, I'm running out of ideas here. Speaking of yikes, actually, let's just go into that here, because dear Lord, where to even begin? So the majority of this book takes place in Japan. James is sent undercover as a Japanese man, so he's basically doing yellow face for like most of the book. And it is gross. Like, it sucks to read this because the whole time you're going, ew, why would you do such a thing? It's just, the cultural appropriation here is bananas. It's just a hot mess of yikes. And besides all that, like I mentioned, it's also just poorly written. Like, there's huge plot holes. There's things that are just don't make any sense if you think about them at all. So, oh boy, this one is just, it's a dumpster fire. We're gonna see how this goes. The book starts off about 9 months after Tracy's death, and James not doing well. He is really going through it, and even M, his boss, is like starting to worry about him because he's drunk all the time, he's getting sloppy at work, he's fucking up missions. You know, frankly, he needs extensive therapy for like a whole lot of things. But instead of that, you know, the government doctors they have him go to, the government psychiatrists, their whole thing is like, you know, send him on another mission, it'll straighten him out. What psychologist would ever say that? None of them, not a single one would ever say such a thing. They convince M to send James out on one more mission, and they're like, fine, if you worry about him fucking it up, send him on a mission that's like really hard to fuck up. Okay, make it something simple. He'll, like, you know, get back on that horse, so to speak. And you know, if he keeps fucking up, you can just fire him like you wanted to do originally. And M has just the mission for James, so he calls him into his office. James, he rolls up about an hour late, looks like shit. And he's just like, what, do you want my resignation? Like, he's sure he's gonna get fired. He knows he's fucking up. But James is super surprised when M is like, oh, you're not getting fired. I'm sending you on a mission. In fact, it's a diplomatic mission, and it comes with a promotion to the diplomatic section, which means you get another number in your call sign. So he was 007. If he gets promoted to the diplomatic section, he's gonna be 7777. Not really the most original to come up with a new number, but it's the first time he has a new number. And it's 4 sevens. Basic idea for this mission is that Japan has this secret cipher cracking machine, and they call it Magic 44. And the British government wants it. They want it real bad. The problem is the CIA has a huge base in Japan, and they control it, and the CIA doesn't want to fucking share. So James is going to be sent to Japan as an Australian diplomat, and once he gets to Japan, he's going to meet up with two people, his contact over there, the other, you know, Australian Secret Service member, his name is Dicko. He's gonna meet up with him, and also the head of the Japanese Secret Service, and it's this guy named Tiger Tanaka, and James is supposed to convince him to let them have a copy of the machine. Nothing really interesting happens between him getting the mission and then arriving in Japan, so we're just gonna cut to he's arriving in Japan. He meets up with Dicko, and he is the most like stereotypical Australian person you will ever meet. He's like the Crocodile Dundee of spies, okay? Like, oh my word. And James and Dicko, they don't really have anything to do yet for the mission, so they're just like hanging out, going around town. They do have some legitimate businessy things to do to maintain cover, but mainly what they're doing is going out and drinking and being belligerent. Well, Dicko is being belligerent. James can hold his liquor better. After about like a week goes by, Dicko is finally able to set up a meeting for James and Tiger. So Dicko, he takes James over to Tiger's like secret headquarters. You know, they all talk for a bit. They're kind of trying to get like a bead on each other. Like, are we gonna be friends or enemies type of thing? And Tiger decides ultimately, like, I like James. So he gives him this decoded Soviet message about testing nuclear weapons and like where they could accidentally fall in certain points in England and they could just wipe out the whole country, you know, hypothetically. This is a big deal kind of decoded message they gave him. So James, he takes the message, he reports in. Luckily, it was with enough time that the British government was able to put safeguards in order so no one got bombed by the Russians. But after this whole first meeting, like Tiger and Dicko and James, they're like three buddies. They're all good friends. They all like just go out and party with each other. Cut to a month later, like literally all they've been doing for the past month is just partying. So it's a month later. James and Tiger, they go to this this geisha house in Japan, and they're getting pissed drunk on sake, and they're talking about women, and James is like, you know what, yeah, I would have a woman, but only if she's not very smart. Like, in fact, the dumber she is about stuff, the better, because I don't want to actually have to talk to her. Like, that's where James is with women right now, yikes. But like, I get it, because he's still grieving over Tracy. Like, he doesn't really have the emotional intelligence to express that he doesn't want to be emotionally involved with anybody because his heart is broken, but he does want to get his dick wet. So here we are. So after the whole evening at the geisha house, Tiger's like, James, come back to my house. And this is like a big deal because Tiger doesn't bring people to his house. And it's mainly because like after this month of partying, Tiger feels comfortable like trying to do a deal with the British essentially. And he's like, listen, the Cold War, it's heating up every day. Shit's getting wild. So Tiger, he just asked James like, hey, what did the British got to offer us for Magic 44? Like, what do you got? We'll give it to you if you have something good to trade. And James is like, bro, I don't know what we have. Like, I just work here. I don't know, name your price and I'll try to make it work. Right now, the only thing I can offer you is like my services. That's all I got. And Tiger hears this and he realizes this is an opportunity. He knows James is in the Secret Service. He's an assassin. He's like, this is an opportunity. Okay, I got it. James, there's this foreign guy from Switzerland and he just moved to Japan like back in January of this year. And this guy is named Dr. Shatterhand, which is just ridiculous. And he is now living in Japan with his most unfortunate looking wife, this woman named Emmy. And they moved into like an abandoned castle that's on a volcano. You guys, like, there's a literal secret volcano lair in this. It's so campy. Like, I'm just trying to, like, believe in the camp factor because it's stupid. But anyway, he has this castle on a volcano, and he basically came there because he wanted to open an environmental preserve where he can grow all this, these exotic plants. And then in return for doing this, he would let all these Japanese scientists come and study his plants. Which seems really harmless. It's just a guy from Switzerland who wants to plant stuff and then share it. Like, the Japanese government is like, yeah, sure, come do that. That sounds great. However, the problem is, this Dr. Shatterhand is likely up to no good because all of his, like, people he keeps hiring, all of his employees, are a bunch of former Black Dragon Society members. So they're a bunch of gangsters. He's hiring former gangsters as his workers. And his environmental preserve is actually a garden of death, kind of like how they portrayed it in No Time to Die, the film. Every plant, bug, and animal in there is either poisonous or venomous, respectively. It's just straight up supervillain shit at this time. Now, this next fact, I'm pretty sure, is culturally insensitive, but for the sake of the story, allegedly over 500 Japanese people have gone there to the garden, you know, illegally. They sneak in because they are trying to unalive themselves. And like, we all know about like the samurai in Japanese culture and like seppuku and stuff, like ritualistic suicide was a thing, but I'm like, it feels gross the way they use it in the book. And the fact that so many people are going there to unalive themselves is triggering, you know, Tiger's spidey sense. He's like, something's off with this guy. I don't like it. And Tiger, he already sent a guy. He sent a guy over to the garden and he was like, go over there, gather info, report back. And he didn't report back. Eventually they found him about a week later, and he was just floating in the ocean, and he was blinded and burned and insane. So things had happened in between him leaving and coming back. And James has been listening to this whole story, and he's like, okay, Tiger, like, what do you want me to do? Go get evidence or something? Like, what? And Tiger, he's like, James, I'm gonna put this real plainly, okay? If you want Magic 44 for the British, you're gonna go to that Garden of Death, and you are gonna kill Dr. Shatterhand, and probably his wife too, because fuck them. I want them dead. You kill people. Seems like a good combo. And it's at this point that the book takes really problematic turns. So buckle up. James, you know, he's a white British man. He doesn't really blend in as a Japanese person. So Tiger, he's like, don't worry, I got you, bro. He takes him to like a health spa, and essentially they just put him into semi-permanent yellow face. I know. All right, let's keep going. So after the makeover, Tiger and James, they set out on like this train all across Japan, and they're going towards like where this castle is very slowly, because Tiger wants to teach James like native Japanese customs so he'll fit in better as a Japanese person. And this seems like sane and rational and like a normal thing to do to prep for, you know, a mission, except for the fact that James doesn't speak Japanese. So who cares if he blends in or looks Japanese? He can't speak the language. But don't worry, Tiger has a fix for that. He gives James his card he's supposed to hold on to, and in Japanese on it, it says that he's, quote, deaf and dumb. Like, I know. I don't like telling you guys this happened in the book either, because it's gross. Yikes, it's very problematic at this point, but oh my God. You know what? I'm just gonna keep drinking. This is how I'm gonna get through this video. And for several chapters, we just kind of have like a montage of James learning customs and stopping at different spots with Tiger. Nothing super significant happens on the trail, except for there was this man, he was wearing like a mask and a leather hat, and he bumped into James once, and James knows this guy just picked his pocket on the train. And James, he keeps seeing that same guy around at other locations. So he's like, that is suspicious. And this all comes to a head on Tiger and James's last day together. They're being driven by kind of like the local like police, magistrate kind of people into the town that's next to where the garden is. And James is like, bro, there's like this guy on a motorcycle, and he has been trailing us the entire time. I'm pretty sure it's the same guy who picked my pocket. So Tiger tells the driver, hey, make a sharp turn and see if they follow us. So they do that, and motorcycle definitely following them. But mind you, they were in an unmarked police car, so the police just like put up their sirens and start them. And so they pull over motorcycle guy. Motorcycle guy stops, cop is walking up to him. James sees the guy like go into his coat like he would have a gun. So James, he's like, no, what? And he just like leaps on the guy, and he knocks him off the road like into this ditch on the side. And James was right, the guy did have a weapon, he had a knife. And as he fell into the ditch, the guy fell on his own knife, so he's dead now. I miss good henchmen. Like this guy, he literally fell on his own knife. Okay. So they search the body, and they find that he has a black dragon tattoo, so he's a gangster, and also had James's wallet on him. So like, yeah, definitely the guy who was sent to follow him, likely, probably, by this Dr. Shatterhand person. They know they're up to something. And at this point, Tiger's like, James, you know what? Let's just call it off, okay? I don't want to send you in there knowing your cover's already blown. Like, this is setting you up for failure. And James is like, cover schmover. Like, I want some extra excitement. Let's go. This is the most fun I've been having in a long time. So Tiger's like, all right, it's your call. So they continue their journey into town, and, you know, they stop and they look at these blueprints of the garden fortress. And they're trying to come up with a plan. So TLDR on this plan essentially boils down to they want James to sneak in and kill the doctor, and also his wife too, if she just happens to be handily there. So in order to do this, James is going to be put undercover as a Japanese man named Taro Todoroki. And he's gonna be living on this little island that's about like a half-mile off the coast where the garden is. And on the island, there's like a tribe of people who live there, and they're kind of iffy about like outsiders and stuff, but luckily one of the cops has like some family there. He's related to this girl, and her name is Kissy Suzuki. And she used to be a big actress in Hollywood, and she left it all to go back to Japan because she hated Hollywood. And James is going to stay with Kissy and her family until like he's ready to go forward with the mission, like for a few days. And then when James leaves, he's going to scale the cliff and sneak into the garden by using his newly acquired ninja skills. It's so bad I can hardly take it at times, okay? But yeah, they taught him some ninja stuff. And this is like bread and butter for James. He's like, okay, I'm going to stay at this girl's house and then I'm going to climb a cliff. Like, I got this. He just, one last thing though. Hey, do you have a picture of this guy? Because like, I don't know who I'm going in there to kill. It would probably help if I like know what he looks like. So Tiger's like, oh yeah. And he gives him like a photo. And he looks at it and he freezes. Because Shatterhand is Blofeld and his ugly wife is Irma Bunt. They came here in January, which was when they killed Tracy. It's like, oh my God, James is just seeing his worst enemy right there in front of him again. And James is having a rage stroke right now, okay? He can't speak, but he's so overcome with rage. Like his whole demeanor changes because like assassin mode clicked on. When James is in assassin mode, he doesn't have feelings. And like, they've mentioned it in several other books when he's in this assassin mode that people find it off-putting. Like, if I want to get psychological about it, I assume his assassin mode is actually like a coping mechanism to protect James from like big feels, but I digress. He goes into assassin mode and it's so quick that his whole demeanor changes and he just keeps talking to Tiger. But he's not his buddy James right now. He's this other person. And like eventually Tiger's like, bro, like, are you okay? Like, what is going on here? Like he knows immediately like James is fucked up right now. But James doesn't want to tell Tiger that Shatterhand is actually Blofeld because Blofeld is on an international like most wanted list. And if they know it's Blofeld, then he's gonna have to start going through official channels and like make it into an actual case. But that's not good enough for James. James is like, he's right there. He murdered my wife. I want revenge. So James manages to convince Tiger that he's at the very least stable and good with continuing the mission, even though he's kind of weird right now. He's like, I got it. I'm not a danger to you. So they gear up and they head over to the little island and they meet with like the head priest on the island, and the priest guy, he hates that guard to death too. He's like, those fucking jabronis. I'm not into them either. James, I'm totally cool with you staying on the island if you're gonna go do something about them. So the head priest, he takes James over to meet Kissy and her family, basically to ask them for permission for James to stay in their home, like on the pretense that he's a Gaijin anthropologist there to study. Anyway, the Suzukis, they're like, okay, you can stay with us. That's totally cool. As long as you like help with chores, like my husband has arthritis, like take out the boat and help Kissy go hunt for shells in the morning. And Kissy, you know, was in Hollywood as an actress, so she speaks English fluently, so she can translate. It's kind of like the best place to put him. So the next morning, James, he's awoken by Kissy, and she's like, hey, come down to the beach. I need you to row my boat. Because the women on this island all dive for shells for like money, kind of like how Honey Rider and Dr. No did. So James, he takes her out on the boat. He's just basically there to row. And whilst he's out with Kissy, he meets Kissy's like bird friend. And this is just like an Easter egg, I think, because like she named him after the actor David Niven, who would go on to play James Bond in the Casino Royale spoof that came out about 3 years after this book was published. So that's just like a fun Easter egg I found for like book and film nerds if you were interested in it. But yeah, this bird friend, he helps like fish for her. It's a whole thing. So she has a bird friend, I guess. And the bird friend keeps looking at James like, what are you doing here? You're useless. So it's James and like a bird just like not getting along with each other for like a lot of pages. And things go on that way for like a few days. Like James, he just wakes up, helps Kissy. They hang out with each other because Kissy speaks English. Platonically, actually. They're actually becoming friends and actually speaking to each other. So it's kind of nice. Finally, Kissy's just like, listen, James, I'm not stupid. I know you're not an anthropologist. like obviously you're not an anthropologist. And also, like, I didn't even tell you, but like these gangster guys from the garden like came over to the island like after you got here, and they were like asking all these questions like, hey, who's this guy? And luckily the whole town just played dumb. They're like, no, no. What guy? I don't see a guy. Like the whole town covered for him. But Kissy's like, listen, like something's up. I should probably know what's happening since I'm spending this much time with you. And James is like, okay, you're right. You know, like you've been involved with this for a minute. So he kind of gives her like the very censored version of why he's there. And then she's like, oh, well, I can help with that. Like you need to do reconnaissance. Like I can take you to the highest point in the island where you can like see into the garden, like real easy. And after they're done with reconnaissance, James is basically, he's gonna have to swim this half-mile to the island and then scale the cliff. And Kissy's like, okay, I got it. I will help you. I'll swim over to the island with you because frankly, it'll be dark. You don't know the currents. You're gonna drown, okay? You need me to show you how to get there. And James doesn't really want her to be anywhere near this. He's like, no, you're gonna be in danger. You're gonna get in the way. However, she has made a really good point about him drowning likely. So he's like, all right, fine. You can swim with me to the island, but you're not allowed to go onto the island, okay? You could just swim up to it. We're good? And Kissy's like, yeah, like, I don't know what I would do at the island anyway. Later that night, they take the boat out to about like halfway between the island and the mainland. And they anchor it so they don't have to swim the full half-mile. Kissy, she's real smart. And so they swim the rest of the way over to like the cliff wall. And James, he's like, Kissy, great, thank you for helping me. And Kissy's like, yeah, it's totally fine. I'm gonna keep coming back here at midnight every night until you come out because I'm here to help you. And James is like, fine, just don't like get caught. James scales the cliff wall. That wasn't very hard for him. He's climbed shit before, so he climbs up. And when he gets to the top, he puts on his ninja suit. Guys, like, I'm sorry, okay? He puts on a ninja suit. And then he starts making his way into the garden to try to figure out like the best route of attack to use. And this Garden of Death is wild after dark, okay? Like James, he's just walking around and he sees several people there to unalive themselves in like cartoonishly gruesome ways, okay? Like a guy's head puffs up really huge, or like some guy dived into a pond full of piranhas. It's like a whole thing. It's like weird that this is happening. But by the time James is done exploring, it's getting rather early in the morning. The sun's gonna come up. James like, well, I can't walk around here in the sunlight. So he finds like this little tool shed and he hides in there during the daytime. Since James has nothing else to do, James spends this time doing more reconnaissance and like spying on all like the workers around and just trying to see like their patterns. And then all of a sudden, boom, he spots Blofeld and Irma just taking a casual stroll in the garden. And James, you know, rage stroke, but he puts that aside and he starts listening to their conversation. Could they give him clues? Like, what is the whole end game here? And do you want to know what Blofeld's whole nefarious plan is? It's literally nothing. This is the whole plan, to make a Garden of Death where people can unalive themselves. I'm assuming maybe unsavory types could pay to put someone into the garden, maybe? But yeah, there's no world domination here. There's no, like, a lot of money coming in. It's literally just gardening. Blofeld, in the past 2 books, has stolen nuclear weapons and also plotted a massive biological warfare attack. And you're telling me, in the 3rd book of the Blofeld trilogy, he's just gardening. Like, I can't think of anything dumber to say about that. But back to the story. After James has seen Blofeld in the flesh for the first time since he killed Tracy, he's like, oh, I'm killing this motherfucker tonight, and I don't care if I kill myself in the process. Like, he is dying tonight. So James waits the rest of the day, just stewing in rage. And then finally, it's dark, it's quiet, It's time to make his move. So James, he comes out of the tool shed. He finds a way into like the castle and he's just in pitch dark. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna look around until I find people. So he just wanders around. He keeps going upstairs and upstairs and upstairs until finally he starts seeing lights on underneath doors. And he's like, okay, people are here. Okay, cool. And James, he's just like doing his ninja thing and sneaking around the house, and he finally gets into like the main hall of the castle, and he's sneaking around and he's like, oh no, what's that? I hear a guard approaching. So he like literally hides behind the curtains like a cartoon. And James' whole plan here, he's like, all right, I'm gonna wait till the guy's not looking and I'm gonna jump out and attack him. That's my whole plan. So James, he waits for a minute and then he jumps out ready to attack the guy, but the guard isn't there. The guard has already left. And James is like, all right, well, that's a freebie. He continues on searching and he starts hearing music play from these speakers that are all over the castle. And they're playing Flight of the Valkyrie by Wagner. And okay. Like, I want to say this book is just cheesy, but like, I think the polite way to say that is to say it's campy. Well, in the book, at least, they started playing this music basically to distract James so he wasn't paying attention where he was going. And he steps right on this one spot that happens to be a booby trap for a trap door. James falls down a long time into like the oubliette of the castle, hits his head, knocks himself out. So sometime later, James is woken up by a guard just slapping him in the face. So it's a rude awakening. So he's like, blah, I'm awake, okay. And James realizes rather quickly, oh, you took all of my clothes. I'm only wearing my sumo thong. You know, like the thong sumo wrestlers wear. So the guards, they take him over to Blofeld. And Blofeld's going through all the belongings, and they find this card that says like, hey, I'm deaf and dumb. And they're like, okay, well, what's this guy all about? So the guard tells Blofeld, like, listen, this guy's probably a spy who's sent here to kill you. Like, obviously, look at this guy. And Blofeld agrees. He's like, yeah, no, I'm with you. He's a spy sent here to kill me, but like, I don't know who he is. Who is he working for? Who could this be? Like, somehow, Blofeld doesn't recognize James at all, which is absurd, okay? They didn't do any, like, plastic surgery. He still has James's face. All they did in this makeover was cut his hair and paint him brown. Like, that's all they did. I'm like, that's the whole disguise. How do you not recognize him? Irma Bunt, the voice of reason here, shows up. She's like, oh, that's James Bond. Like, obviously. Like, we've met him several times. Like, obviously. Hello, have you seen his face? And Blofeld's like, Irma, the men are talking, okay? He doesn't believe her that is James Bond. Like, this guy is supposed to be a supervillain, the big villain that James faces, and he can't see through a fake tan. I've got nothing, guys. So Blofeld decides, okay, I'm gonna send him off to be interrogated and we'll get to the bottom of his identity very quickly. Because if he's really, like, deaf, he won't know what I'm saying to him. So he takes him over to this question room, they call it. And he tells James, hey, this room is actually a volcanic geyser and it erupts every 15 minutes. And you got 11 minutes till it erupts again. So, you know, if you sit on the chair the whole time and you don't even react to anything, obviously you don't understand the instructions and, like, you know, you were innocent and you'll burn to death. But, like, if you get up, it'll prove that you can hear me and understand me, and then, you know, we'll torture you more. Which has no logical sense. Like, geysers are hot. Like, even if James was, quote, deaf and dumb, like, he would still feel heat and move. Like, none of this makes sense. Like, it's driving me slowly insane trying to rationalize things in a book where there's no rationale. It's just spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. Inevitably, geyser erupts. James jumps off the chair. Because obviously, who wouldn't? And James, he's just like, all right, fine. I'm done with this farce. He just starts talking in English. He's like, all right, Blofeld. Okay, you got me. Good for you. Like, why don't we just get on with it, okay? Like, I got places to be. And this is the part of the book where, like, James and the villain have their big talk, okay? So they all sit down for this talk, presumably for Blofeld to question James. And I'm going to tell you right now, Blofeld never asked James a single question in this whole conversation. Not a single question, not even like, why are you here? What evidence do you have? Nothing. Doesn't ask him a single thing. Now we're at that cliche part of the book where, like, you know, the villain does her big monologue. You know, the big speech where they could have obviously just killed the good guy already and be done with it, but no, they need to like talk out their plan for a minute. And James is like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm at the part of this where like the villain pontificates for a while, how no one understands their genius. And he's just so angry that he's gonna have to sit through this again. He's like, oh my God, I'm so tired of hearing you talk, Blofeld. Like, oh my God. Like, he's mad. This is the third time he's doing this. Until Blofeld just gets so angry. He's like, you know what? I'm done with this. I don't want my guard to do this. I want to kill you myself because I got this brand new samurai sword and I've been dying to use it. So like, I get it. If you got a brand new samurai sword, you'd want to use it for stuff. So Blofeld raises his sword. He's about to like stab James, but James, he snaps into action. He jumps out of the chair. And he has several things he needs to accomplish to get out of this. Step one, take out Irma because she's a little snake, okay? So James, he just grabs like a big wooden sword and just whacks her in the head with it, knocks her out, okay? Step one complete, knocked out Irma. Step two of the plan is rather simple. James is gonna kill Blofeld with his bare hands. So James and Blofeld, they get into like a very one-sided sword fight all over the room for a while. Eventually, like James, he gets the advantage and he grabs Blofeld by the throat with his hands. And Blofeld is trying to pull James's hands off of his neck because, you know, James is strangling him. I have no idea why Blofeld doesn't use the fucking sword he's holding. He literally drops the sword and tries to pull off James's hands. Like, bro, you could have just stabbed him. He's like within arm's distance of you. What is this book? But, you know, James has plot armor, okay? That would get in the way of his revenge, and James is a full-on revenge monster right now, and he strangles Blofeld to death barehanded. Mind you, he has done all of this with a massive concussion. He hit his head very hard when he fell through the floor. So, like, he meant it. Like, he's dizzy, and he still managed to strangle him. James, he takes Blofeld's sword because, hey, waste not, want not. It's a nice sword. And also, he takes his kimono because, mind you, James was only wearing a thong this whole time. He was fighting straight up Eastern Promises style. So James is wandering around in a kimono with a sword, super concussed, okay? He's dizzy. He's not in, like, the best fighting shape at the moment. The only thing that got him through the fight was pure rage. So James is like, all right, I gotta figure out how to get out of this castle, I guess. What? Like, he's just wandering around all confused. And he eventually gets out of the castle and he winds up on this balustrade. And it's the wrong balustrade that he was supposed to get on because this one, it's a dead end. There's no way to get out of it. He's like, well, shit, the only way out is like, jump off the cliff. So he's like, oh no, this is probably a bad idea. However, he hears the guards come running all of a sudden. Like, they have realized, uh-oh, Blofeld's dead. The guards are off. So he's like, okay, I need to come up with an idea fast. And James's plan is, I can't tell if it's really stupid or it's become so stupid it's flipped back around to brilliant. I'm not sure, honestly. But on this balustrade, there is a giant helium balloon with a poison like flag on it. So James is like, okay, I'm gonna hop on this balloon. So he does. He gets on the balloon, like he gets himself in the ropes, and then he cuts the mooring and he floats away like the movie Up. He's on a balloon. And even James is astonished that his shitty plan actually worked. He's like, oh shit, I'm flying. Like, he's having a good time. That is until the guards spot him and they all start shooting at him because they all have guns. And in like the melee, James ends up getting like grazed by a bullet in the head, you know, which is the last thing he needed. He already had a massive concussion and now he got shot in the head, okay? He's not doing well. It's really kind of hard to understand exactly what's happening action-wise because James is telling the story and he has a massive head injury. But like, I think the volcano erupts and the castle explodes. I think that's what happened, but it's very unclear in the text because, you know, head wound. And James is in so much pain in his head that he can't even think. He just wants to stop the pain. So he sees that he's finally over the ocean. So he just lets go and he falls into the ocean. And James, this is his lucky day because all of this shit happened right around midnight when Kissy was already swimming back to the island. So she sees James just plummet into the sea and she's like, oh fuck. So she swims over and to like rescue him. And James is so disoriented. He doesn't know what's going on. He is out of it. He can't even swim. He is just that concussed. So she literally just has to like lifeguard swim with him like all the way back to the shore because she can't lift him into the boat. She has to swim all the way back. Like that's a half mile carrying a large man. But she does it. Like Kissy like came through in the end. She did it. She swam all the way to shore. James is finally like recovering a little bit so he can like talk. And he's just like, hey you, like, where am I? Who am I? He just has no memory. And Kissy's like, seriously, you can't remember anything? And he's like, nope. But you're a pretty lady, so let's hang out. James still trying to be smooth in this moment. And I hate this next plot turn here because Kissy takes this as an opportunity because she wants to keep James. She is very fond of him. And she's like, oh, you don't remember your James? Okay. She tells him his name is Taro Todoroki. And he's her boyfriend and he lives on this island together. And they're like, you know, he's a fisherman. And like, don't worry about it, honey. You just bumped your head while you were climbing a cliff because you were like looking for seagulls. Like gives him this like bullshit story. And James has no frame of reference for anything. So he just believes her. He's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I was looking for seagulls. Okay. So Kissy's like, okay, James, you're gonna stay here in this little alcove and I'm gonna go get a doctor, okay? And she runs off and she's like, okay, I got a lot to do to put my whole trap James plan into action here. Somehow her parents are cool with it because he's been helping out around the house. He's useful. So they're like, yeah, cool. We'll pretend he's Taro. Yeah, we're down. And she even like talks into like the town priest into letting him stay, at least for as long as he doesn't have his memory. And they're all cool with it. They're all just gonna go along with this big lie. Mind you, again, this huge plot hole they keep forgetting. James does not speak Japanese at all. Like he's supposed to believe he's a Japanese fisherman who doesn't speak Japanese. Okay, they're gonna convince him of this, I guess. Why not? And then things just kind of go on like that. James starts living his life as Taro Todoroki. And she just keeps hiding him away because, you know, like people come looking for him. People knew where he was. Like Tiger and Dicko, they show up looking for answers. But like the whole island's pretending like they don't know who James is still. They're like, well, I don't know who this guy is. He's not here. He just never came back. I don't know. And no one can find James anywhere. So they just have to assume he was killed in action. So the British ministry, they pronounce him dead and they even like write his obituary and post it in the paper. Like he is officially, like legally speaking, dead. And James is just off here living his best island fisherman life with Kissy, and they're in a relationship and like, you know, things get intimate obviously because this has been going on for months, okay? This is not just like a week. This has been several months, okay? James has been living under this assumed identity. And one day, James, he happens to find like a scrap of newspaper on this island. And on this little scrap of paper, it mentioned a Russian city called Vladivostok. And James, he's like, oh man, what's Vladivostok? This, like, things start ringing in his head. He's like, oh man, I feel like Russia was like a big deal to me before I lost my memories. Like he knows he has amnesia, but he just thinks he's Taro still. But he's like, I think I need to go to Russia, you know, to figure out my identity. And this is the day Kissy has never wanted to happen because she wanted to keep James. This was like her dream man. However, she does make the right choice here. She's like, of course, James, I will help you get your memory back, even though she's completely heartbroken. And she's like, okay, I'll help you get to Vladivostok. There's ways to do that. But she's like, hey, James, like, be careful because, like, Russia isn't, like, super cool to go to. Like, she's at least, like, warning him a bit. But James, he's just so determined. He's like, no, I need to get there, okay? So it comes time for James to leave the island. And, you know, as he leaves, you know, Kissy, she's heartbroken. And she never tells James that she's pregnant with his baby, okay? And that's where the book ends. It ends with a secret baby. James Bond has a kid out there somewhere in Japan right now. Like, what? Okay, I need to like calm down because this book is infuriating for many reasons. It is horribly problematic. And it's also just bad. Like, it makes so little sense at times that I feel like Ian Fleming is just fucking with us, okay? Like, how? Like, so many things in the book make no sense. It's full of plot holes. It's horribly problematic. This is a dumpster fire. I'm sorry I said it. I actually liked it even less the second time I read this. Most of these books I've liked better the second time. This time, I hate it. I hate it even more. It's so bad. Let me know in the comments down below, what's a book that makes so little sense that you feel like the author is fucking with you? What is it for you? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos and a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.